On behalf of all of us at the YAAACE Time podcast, thank you for rocking with us through season 1. This season has been an incredible journey. Our set evolved, our co-host lineup changed, and we shared powerful stories and knowledge from an amazing group of guests. We hope you found it as entertaining and insightful as we did. But as we gear up for season 2, we're excited to bring you more of what you love. We've got some incredible guests already lined up, and we can't wait to share those conversations with you. But before we dive into season 2, we've got 2 special bonus episodes that we think you'll love. In this episode, we'll sit down with Coach Pat Brown, an inspiring coach and educator. Fun fact, this was actually the first episode that we filmed with Kediatu as our co-host. So let's jump in and enjoy these final moments of season 1 together.
You're tuned into the YAAACE Time podcast.
Welcome back to the YAAACE Time podcast. We are back and happy to be here with you live and direct from our YAAACE studios here in Jane and Finch. I'm your co-host Zane, and today we have Kediatu joining us as our new co-host. Welcome, Kediatu. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Happy to be here. So my name is Kediatu Berry, and I'm one of the community resource engagement workers for the New Narrative program here at YAAACE, where we offer various supports such as case management and a youth diversion program for youth ages 6 to 29 within the Northwest Toronto communities. And we essentially just focus on violence prevention and intervention. I'm also a longtime resident of the Jane and Finch community and a former basketball player in high school.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you here. Excited to open this new chapter.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Today, we have also with us the great Coach Patrick Brown.
Ooh.
Thank you for that, Zane. I appreciate you calling me great.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've actually seen you coach, so I can say you're a great coach. I've been in those huddles, and yeah, I can. I'm not saying that without a flinch. You know what I mean? Yeah, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you give us a quick little introduction, bio, your background?
Okay, so thanks for that great introduction, Zane. My name's Patrick Brown. As Zane has said, I do coach. I've been coaching for about 25 years, coaching basketball. I'm an educator, so I've taught in the classroom, and I've also worked in the private sector with the Air Miles Reward Program, TD Bank. So I have private sector a background, and I've worked in the private sector for about 30 years. And now I'm just trying to get back to the kids, coaching and mentoring. And I didn't grow up at Jane and Finch, but I grew up at Jane and Eglinton, and we had the same type of issues that this community faces there. So I'm in tune. I'm one of the guys that's come from this kind of community, this background. Right. So I find that it's best for me to pay it forward and give back to my community and try to help people. If I can only help 1 or 2, those people can turn around and come back and help 2 or 3, and we just have a domino effect. Right. And that's how we get our community where we really want it to be.
Yeah, one at a time, for sure. For sure. So, well, you mentioned your experience also in the classroom as well as coaching. How do you see the intersection of education and athletics impacting the lives of these youth that you work with?
So I find that the combination of athletics and education is a very powerful one. It's one that I think kids in the Black community and in the underprivileged communities can use to escape that cycle of poverty and violence. You use your athletic ability that God's given you to be able to play basketball or play whatever sport you play, and you hit the books. Everybody has the ability. Everybody has a brain. So if you're disciplined, school's not about smarts. School's about discipline and preparation and perseverance. That's what school's all about. So if you can get in an environment where that's encouraged and that's impressed on you to be disciplined, to persevere, to be organized, you'll do well in school. And with a combination of being a great athlete and having good academic standing, high grades, it opens up a vast area where you can go in and make something of yourself. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, if you're a solid C student or a B student and you're a good basketball player, you have access to go to all these universities. But if you're a good basketball player and you have like a 90, 95 average, now you're talking about schools that are Ivy League.
Yeah,
Right.
opportunities
Where
open up.
you're separating yourself from the masses.
Right.
You're elite. And we have had this thing in the Black community for a long, long time, since pretty much we've taken over here as slaves in the Western world, where we're valued for our physical labor, not our intellectual capacity.
Right.
And it still permeates our community, where our young men don't think they're smart, don't think that they can use their brains to get out of the circumstances that they're in. They think they either got to be an entertainer or some phenomenal athlete.
Right.
And the chances are you becoming an NBA player or an NFL player or a major league player, those chances are lower than you being a good athlete and a good student, getting a scholarship or getting an education and becoming a lawyer, a doctor, an architect, sports agent, if you still want to be in the sports realm.
Yeah.
And that's going to help our community. Our community needs doctors. We need lawyers. We need doctors big time. It's hard to find a Black doctor. So if we can get kids to start thinking that way, which is what I tried to do when I was at United and at Inspire, we're better off. Like, not everybody can play in the NBA or be a major leaguer, but the majority of those kids can be doctors, can be lawyers and architects.
I feel like oftentimes a lot of the youth in our communities especially limit themselves based on their surroundings, what they know, what they see growing up, right? So how do we get them to see outside of that box? How do we inspire them again to like actually be able to see themselves as lawyers, doctors, or engineers? Because oftentimes right now, they only know what they know based on what they see in the community.
And that's a great point. And I'll tell you a story. When I was younger in the 70s, I came to Canada in 1970. I was 8. And my brothers and my mom would always tell us that you guys can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. So we always had this mindset of that. You tell me I can't do something, I'll do it.
Right.
Like when I came to Canada, they said, well, you Black guys can't skate because you have weak ankles, which I thought was ridiculous.
Weak ankles? I never heard
Weak
that one.
ankles
We
is
had weak
crazy.
ankles. So how are we the best basketball players?
Right.
So I would go out and prove them. I learned how to skate. I did play all-star hockey,
Okay.
right? So you got to think outside of the box. And it's also what your parents, what's going on in the home.
Yep.
Your parents have obviously a vast resources to tell you, hey, you can become whatever you want. Whatever you choose to do, you can do that. You just need to put in the work. Are there going to be barriers? Yeah, there might be barriers, but you can overcome those. That's where perseverance comes in.
Right.
So when I was younger, we used to watch the news all the time, the ABC nightly news. Now, one day, me and my brothers were all sitting around. We watched the ABC nightly news, and guess who the anchorman was? A Black anchorman.
Wow.
He was from Virginia, and he was doing the news in Virginia behind a board because they liked his voice, but the people in Virginia couldn't handle it, that a Black guy would be
Didn't want to
reading
see
their
him.
news.
Wow.
So finally, he got tired of that and said, I'm moving this board. I'm coming on air, and if they don't like it, they don't like it. That anchorman's name was Max Robinson.
Okay.
Because ABC had 3 affiliates. They had a Chicago affiliate, they had a London affiliate, and they had a New York affiliate. Max Robinson was the Chicago affiliate. So when I saw him, this guy was so handsome, had a mustache, everything. I said, I want to be an anchorman. And I would tell my friends that, and they would, you know what they would say to me? You're not going to become an anchorman. They don't let Black guys become anchormen. That's what you're talking about, where you're saying you limit your mind.
Yep.
Right.
And you limit your imagination of where you can go and what you can do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you mentioned getting them out of the box. How do we do that?
We do it by speaking to them. We get people out there that tell their story. We talk about media. We get media to show that there are people that look like you that have done that.
Mm-hmm.
So that they get the idea was, well, if he did it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's what we need to do. We need to get people in our community to sit and have workshops and have discussions and mentor these young guys, these young women to show them that, hey, there are people like you who do this.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to show you where they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you point that out to them. And once somebody sees that one of them did it, they all think they can do it.
They think they can do it.
Possibilities are endless, yeah.
You're actually talking about a program that we actually do offer now, which is the YAAACE's Career Launch Initiative, where we're taking youth from this community into workplaces. We visited Sony, we've visited Cardinal Health. We took them to Ottawa, to the House of Commons. We've been to Queen's Park. We taking them all these places to see people that look like them in these positions. Yeah, because it does open their eyes to let them know that it is possible.
Yep.
Even things like Big Brother Canada, like the live showing of that, also opens up their mind, right? Because oftentimes I'm a big believer of, if you can see it, you can believe it. So even going back to you now, branching out, like going outside of the box, you have a degree in radio and TV. Am I right?
Yeah.
What was that like for you, even going down that path? Was it because of you seeing a Black man on TV? What made you decide to go down the path of even going into TV and radio?
So at that time, I was working at the Air Miles Award program. I had been there for almost a decade, and then I got packaged out. So then it became, what do I do next with my life? And everyone was always telling me, you got a good voice. You have a radio voice.
You do have a radio voice.
Why don't you get in? And you like telling stories. Why don't you try to get into the media?
Right.
So I had my RRSPs. I had to cash out my RRSPs to go to this College of Sports Media. It cost me $34,000 to go there.
Wow.
And I went there, and at the time, I was in my 50s, and I was going to school with guys that were 17 and 18, writing scripts, being on air, shooting, editing, using Avid.
Yep.
And I was going there and at night reffing and trying to do any odd job I could to keep my house. So it was one of the toughest times in my life, but I remembered back to wanting to be an anchorman when I was a teenage kid, wanted to be Max Robinson. Like we just talked about, if you see it, you think that you can do it.
For sure.
So that's what inspired me to go back, to go to school. And at that age, and I had profs there telling me, "Oh, no one wants to see an old Black man on TV.
Wow,
you're not going to make it." And that's when I kicked in again. Well, I'm not listening to what you say.
Right.
I'm going to go with what I think I can do.
Yeah.
Right.
Took it as a challenge.
I took it I always take it as a challenge when they tell me, "Oh, you can't do something."
Right.
Right. But you got to remember, I'm different because I was brought up in an environment where I was taught that as a young boy, that no one can tell you what you can do. You're the one that can decide what you do. So a lot of young kids now in the community in the Jane and Finch corridor, they don't have that at home. They're just getting their confidence beat down every day. So they're not strong enough to say, well, yeah, I can do that, because they haven't seen it and they're not being taught that day every day. So I think we need to get into our communities more and teach parents and teach these young kids that we need to be more uplifting, and we need to push each other more, and we need to be more productive with our thinking and not limit ourselves to just, we just do certain things. And I think that the word of mouth is very powerful.
It's also really important too, because so I also have a journalism background. I went to Carleton University, and I didn't really know how important it was to be a part of the media until leaving my community and really understanding how the media was shaping my community, right? What did people think of the community that I lived in? I didn't really understand that until I moved to Ottawa. So now I want to talk about the power of storytelling, right? What are your thoughts on, just the power of storytelling, the narratives that they tell about our different communities, and actually being able to reshape those stereotypes if we're in front of the camera?
So one of the men that I idolize is Malcolm X. And Malcolm X said the media is very powerful. they can make the innocent look guilty, and they can make the guilty look innocent.
Yes.
So with that being said, that tells you how powerful the media is, and the stories that the media tells about the Black community, the stereotypes and the myths that they portray can hurt Black people. And that's why we need, I think we need to create our own media types to do this podcast Zane's doing is magnificent, because now we can start highlighting our own community, and we could start telling about the positive stories that are coming out of our community. See, the thing with people of melanated people is they're always telling the negative stories about us, and the same negative stories that they tell about us, they have in their own communities.
Exactly.
They just sweep those under and also make sure they're always being positive about it.
Right.
Whereas in our community, they're just giving out the negative. You see sometimes like I saw yesterday in the newspapers, there was these 3 kids that carjacked. Right away, they have all their names in the paper and all their ages. And you don't normally see that, especially if they're minors.
Right.
So I just think that if we're in control of a media source, we can decide what kind of stories we want to put out there about our communities instead of always beating our communities down.
Exactly.
We can sell wins that are happening in our community. Like, for example, what's happening with YAAACE and some of the good things that are happening in the Jane and Finch corridor, and not just Jane and Finch, but other communities that are largely populated by people that are melanated people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that we're not in the media, like you were saying. It's just that the wrong things are being portrayed,
correct,
right? And pushed to the front. Where what they call Black culture, is not all of our culture, right? It's and a lot of it is stuff that we see in music videos and movies, and our kids are watching this stuff, and this is what they think they need to be like. Yeah. Right.
And it doesn't show the diversity of our community.
Exactly.
Where our community is very diverse. We're not just one people. They show that how their community is diverse. You know, the Italians do this, the Greeks do this, the Irish do this. But they make the Blacks seem like we all do the same thing. And we don't all do the same thing. Our stories are not all gun violence and students not doing well. We have lots of Black students doing fantastic in school. Right? Yeah. We have lots of Black kids out there doing very positive things, getting scholarships, good in music, good in the arts.
Right.
We have that out, but not a lot of it's not publicized. It's the negative stereotype that's publicized and gives people the idea that that's what all these people do. Because remember, a lot of people, they don't have friends that are melanated. So whatever they see about Blacks, it's on TV.
Yeah.
When I worked at Air Miles, I worked with a couple of Chinese people that were out there. And one of them said, I still remember it to this day. He says, well, my parents are afraid of Black people. And I'm like, your parents even have any Black friends? No, they just know what they see on TV. And I'm like, who's putting stuff on TV?
Yep. And even in today's day and age where you can go on YouTube and get access to a whole bunch of different media. But like, for example, the last company I worked at was a predominantly white company, right? And, you know, now when I tell people where I work and what I do now, they're like, oh, isn't it dangerous?
Oh, God.
Like, you go to Jane and Finch every single day? Like, aren't you scared? They can't put it together in their minds that not everybody is the way that you see on CP24. And even that, like, the looking at the crime rate index from last year, the majority of shootings in the city did not happen in Jane and Finch.
It's the outskirts, or
did not happen in Jane and Finch, but there is that stereotype, right? And then because of the media and what they see on TV, that's what they tell their kids too, right? So then it just becomes this place that you should never go to because something's going to happen to you every time you go there. It's absolutely not the case.
But it also goes back to, like, shaping the young minds and how, like, dangerous some of these storytellers can be. I know for a lot of us growing up, oftentimes I would hide the fact that I'm from Jane and Finch, especially when I did go to school, because of how negative because of the negative stereotypes that were attached to the community,
Right.
I would always say I'm from beside York University, or I wouldn't really dive into saying Jane and Finch because I know what the outcomes would be. So for a lot of the youth living here, it's like we now become more ashamed of where we are or where we come from, right?
Yeah, just about to say that. Now you're ashamed of where you come from,
Exactly.
and how does that make you feel as a person?
And how does that shape you as well growing up?
Yeah.
And how does that make you want to go out and aspire?
Mhm.
Where if you're afraid to tell anyone where you're from.
Yeah. You're keeping yourself in that box we were talking about earlier.
Limiting
on, right?
yourself against full cycle. Yep.
Yeah.
Because they actually say, when I say they, psychologists,
Mhm.
that you end up pushing forward that perception of who you think you are to other people when you're not inside your community. You're
true.
actually pushing that forward. So
Mhm.
that's a negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're already starting from a negative. So how are you going to have a positive life and positive things happen to you if you're dealing from negative,
Right.
right? And you're projecting that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm. One of the things that YAACE puts a heavy emphasis on is academic excellence and personal development, both on the basketball court and in the classroom. As a teacher and a coach, I know you must have come across this situation a couple of times. Actually, I think we might have even talked about this a few weeks ago. Student athletes who maybe are getting towards, or they're in high school. How do you approach this conversation of the balancing of your classroom and your athletics
Mm-hmm.
and your goals on both sides? We had talked about kids who chase this basketball dream so hard, and go down to a JUCO in the States, end up coming back with nothing, thinking they're going down there doing the JUCO and then ending up in a D1 and then going to the NBA. And it never happens for a large majority of kids. How do you approach that conversation?
So the conversation I have with them is that athletics is not the end all and be all. Education supersedes athletics. And not everybody can, like I said before, not everybody can play in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to be a major leaguer.
Mhm.
But you can use the sport
Yep.
to get somewhere in life, not let the sport use you. So if you're a pretty decent basketball player and you get a scholarship somewhere, you need to get that degree.
Right.
Because even if you do play pro, you're going to be done by the time you're 30 years old. So
Mhm.
now you need a place to what's going to be happening with the rest of your life. So again, we come back from this point of Blacks have always been used for their physical ability and not their intellectual ability. Like we're actually berated for our intellectual capabilities. We're put down.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're told we're dumb. Our kids don't succeed the way that other races of kids succeed in the classroom. And it has nothing to do with intellectual capability.
Yeah.
It just has to do with a mindset of, like, we talked about you saying you didn't want to say you were from Jane and Finch.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go into a classroom where you're like, why am I doing this? Or why am I doing
Right.
this work? I don't care about this. I just care about basketball.
Mhm.
Then you're not going to be a good student. And being a good student in school, it's not about how smart you are. It's about discipline,
Right.
right? Because you're just regurgitating stuff in class, right? I'm a teacher, but I'll tell you like it is. You go into the classroom, the teacher gives you a certain amount of information that you need to cover
Mm-hmm.
and that you need to have memorized, and then you give it back to them. That's how they test you, right? What does that have to do with intelligence, right? Intelligence is me giving you $50 and telling you to navigate your way from downtown to uptown to go see a basketball game or go to a concert.
Yeah. Problem
That's
solving.
intelligence.
Problem
That's a good
solving.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But giving back, that's regurgitation.
Yeah.
So like I impress on these kids you got to do good in school. You have to get good grades so that you're able to get to the next place where you can get that degree. And now that separates you from someone else who doesn't have it. And it's a prerequisite to get a job or even get an interview.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And if you don't have a job, you can't get a car, you can't get a loan, you can't get a home, you can't get credit cards. So you're shut out of all of that in life. And now you're in this vicious cycle of just hustling.
Yeah,
we all know
to
what
survive.
hustling, guys are talking about they're hustling. And usually the hustle gets you in trouble. Now you're in the justice system.
Yep.
So the importance on education, it's paramount because it's like a key to opening a world that you won't have access to if you don't have that education. It's not something that I've read about or I'm just pontificating about. It's something that I know. I was a guy that was able to go to university with OSAP student loans and get a degree and pay back the OSAP.
Right.
And now I had access to jobs that I would never have access to. And I worked at TD Bank. I worked at multiple agencies. I worked at the Air Miles Reward Program. I would have never got in there. And when I was in there, Zane, those places, I was the only black male representative. I didn't have any black coworkers. I worked with one other black man at Air Miles, and he was a graphic artist. And he was only there for 2 weeks before they fired him. I was there for 10 years. It took me 7 interviews to get into Air Miles.
Wow.
7 interviews. I was even interviewed by my coworkers.
Wow.
The graphic artist.
That's wild, yeah.
And I got in.
You got interviewed by one of the graphic artists themselves.
that I was going to work with in the agency. He interviewed me.
Wow. That's actually interesting.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, I never heard that one before.
And then I had to wait, didn't hear a response. And I emailed my boss, my potential boss. I emailed her. And her next thing was, what's your address? We're going to send you the contract.
Wow.
So I'm not talking about how I'm talking about my personal, how I got into these companies. There are not very many black people working in these multinational companies that people make a big living off. And these degrees open you up to certain jobs that are high paying jobs. Because if you have a mortgage, you have a car payment, you got to buy food, you have credit cards, you need to be making a certain amount of money to be able to live that lifestyle, to be able to live in Richmond Hill, to be able to live in the upper areas of Vaughan, right? And so you need a certain income, right? Most
that income number is rising too.
I would even say incomes.
Multiple incomes. Yeah.
And so if you're only working a menial labor job, you're going to be struggling your entire life because you don't. Yeah. At the end of every month, you don't have enough money to pay for what you need.
That's true.
So now it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So in order to access those high-paying jobs, now it's not a bachelor's you need. You need an MBA.
This is true. Soon it's going to be a PhD.
Yeah. And another thing that's happening is what's going on with all the jobs that are quote unquote not white collar jobs. So the plumber, the
electrician,
like the trades,
they're being pushed away from these trades. Where there are very high paying jobs in these trades.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing I was going to say. You don't necessarily need an MBA to get a high paying job. You don't necessarily
need a university degree.
You don't actually have to go and put yourself into all that debt.
No.
You don't have to do that.
It's a scam.
It is.
And it's happening in the United States. Biden the other day was talking about relieving all those student loans.
Forgiveness,
There are these guys in the United States that go to universities and they owe their life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, touching on that, from what I hear, a large number of them are doctors and people that have gotten these humongous loans. They have the means to pay them back. They're just not paying them back.
Yeah.
And
because they figure
Biden's going to come just forgive all of that and put it on the taxpayers.
Most likely.
And taxpayers that never went to that school, never took any of those classes, are now going to have to pay for this, right? Because the money's got to come from somewhere.
That's
I think
true.
they should go back to the schools. I think the schools should be the ones that have to cover those loans.
They should be.
Right? Especially the tuition goes up every single year.
Even when the school's on strike, tuition is still being paid. So.
Yeah, that's where the scam is.
Yeah.
That's a big scam.
Yeah. I'm still on route to paying back that scam.
Yeah. It's a big scam.
Yeah. So okay. I'll touch a little bit on this. As we're continuing to grow here at YAACE.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these young kids coming in have no idea that YAACE had a girls program at one point, basketball program. I'm talking about basketball, and a pretty legendary program at that. Like
There were some good players that came to YAACE.
a force to be reckoned with on the girls' side over here. That program has since gone away, and we are now working to bring that back. We are in discussions to bring that girls' programs back. I'm really excited about that. What I was gonna ask you was, so your involvement with Become One, okay, particularly empowering young girls through basketball life skills. How do you believe mentorship in sports contributes to girls' self-esteem and confidence? And how does this align with YAACE's mission of providing opportunities for all youth?
So first, I'd like to just talk about girls' sports in general.
Yes.
Like over the past 2 decades, women's sports has grown like exponentially, right? The 2023 World Cup was watched by over 2 million people that took in 64 matches. They just kicked off the Women's Professional Hockey League.
Yep.
They didn't have that before. The NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament had record numbers.
Yes.
And with the Caitlin Clark effect,
Yes.
right?
Yes. I'd love to see if that continues.
Yeah.
Well,
Because I know she had a lot of
continued.
hype. She had a lot of hype around her.
Right.
And that obviously had more people tuning in. Right, I'm really interested to see if, and I hope it does. I hope it does continue.
It's already
Even
happened.
with the game in
because you know why?
Edmonton, yeah.
Yesterday, the WNBA announced that all teams will fly charter.
Right,
Yes,
yeah,
I
I
saw
saw
that.
that.
So
saw
that.
that's already the Caitlin
Right.
Clark effect, because you got players now, not Caitlin Clark,
Yeah.
Brittany Griner
Mhm.
and the Bayou Barbie. They can't travel
Yeah.
commercial
Mm-hmm.
because you got a lot of nutcases out there that's going to try something.
Yeah.
So now they've come up with the 25 million. So now all NBA teams, WNBA teams, travel chartered. It's better for the players.
Yep.
A lot of them are tired. Last year there was some of them hooked up in an airport
Yeah.
because their connector flight didn't go. They had to sleep over all night.
Right.
So it hurts
Which
the
is
product.
insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's
crazy
one good
for
Right.
pros to be spending the night in an airport.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that's one of the things. Then there was a volleyball game played in Nebraska, in Lincoln, Nebraska, that had 92,000 people attend.
Wow.
Right?
A
And
volleyball game?
yeah, 92. The women's volleyball, NCAA volleyball, is huge.
Wow.
And the championships between the WNBA, the New York Liberty, and the Las Vegas Aces, that drew record numbers too. And the Paris Olympics are coming up.
Yes.
And for the first time, there'll be an equal amount of women and men athletes for the first time in the history of the Olympic Games.
Really?
Yeah. So that's a little overview about how women's sports has evolved. Now, let's talk about some of the benefits that happen when girls participate in sport. Girls who play sport are less likely to get involved and in unintended pregnancies. They get better grades. They have a higher level of confidence, self-esteem, lower levels of depression. They have better body image. They're better in the brain.
Right.
Psychologically, they just have a better outlook on life, better outlook on themselves. Some of the physical things that happen, there's 60% less to get breast cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
60% less to get breast cancer.
What is that related to? That the physical activity, like what?
Exercise, the taking care of your body,
the exercise
the mental,
and the taking care of their bodies and the eating better. It reduces the risk of not only breast cancer, but heart disease.
Yeah.
Osteoporosis, brittle bones, higher level of confidence again, and self-esteem. And this whole thing where we teach boys about, being involved in sports shows you perseverance and how to navigate when you fail and all that. if we're giving that to our young boys, we need that to give that to the young girls, because we need a society where we're giving both people an opportunity, both sexes an opportunity, so that we can have a better society in general. Agreed. And so when I've been doing the Become One, a girls organization that's AAU, and I've been doing that for quite a while now. Girls need that opportunity. They need that opportunity to have the same advantages that boys have, so they can get the same benefits that boys get out of it. And it creates for a more equitable society. And you get young boys now who are, we talk about, accepting people in a role that is non-traditional. These young boys now will accept girls when they get older in positions that young women never had before. Right. You see that now when you see the WNBA. Who are the biggest supporters of the WNBA players?
Some of the NBA players. Players. This is true.
Sabrina Ionescu, her shoe, a lot of the NBA guys wear them.
Yep.
Really? Yeah.
They're the biggest supporters of that. Why? Because they know what it takes to be a great baller, and they see these girls, and they know what these girls put in to become a great baller.
Yeah. I also see that in the female coaches that are coming into the NBA as well, and these guys just willing to listen to a female head coach. You would think that would be a barrier, right? In a male locker room to send a woman in there and tell them what to do on the court. But like you're saying, they're recognizing and giving respect where it's due.
Yeah, well, Nail Ivy, who coaches University of Notre Dame, I have a girl that I coach that plays there, Cassandra Prosper. Nail Ivy was coaching in the NBA. She coached with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Wow.
And those players, they were locked into her because she knew her stuff.
Yeah.
She had been a point guard at Notre Dame, won the national championship. So I think once these players realize that you know your stuff and you can be a benefit to them, this whole thing about what sex the other person is goes out the window.
The respect is there, yeah.
Kara Lawson, that coaches Duke University, she was coaching the Boston Celtics. Those guys were locked in. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
And I think once you get that, people don't worry about what your gender is. If you're gonna make it so that now it gets to the point where she's good, man.
Yeah.
Like, we need her. It was the same thing with the movie where the lady who was able to come up with the mathematical calculation to get the space shuttle into space and back.
Right.
John Glenn, the guy that was on Apollo, the Apollo flight that was the first landing on the moon, he trusted her because he knew she knew her math. He didn't care if she was a black woman.
Yeah.
He just cared that she was able to get him up into space and back without him burning up to death. So if you prove that you can do it, your gender all of a sudden goes out the door.
Well, I mean, you do need the opportunity to prove that you can do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Opening up the opportunities for these young women, but also inspiring them to continue to play these games, right? Because I feel like for me, I loved sports in high school. I played volleyball, basketball, but all of a sudden when I went to university, I don't know what it is, but my focus just became academics, and I kind of just threw sports out the window, which I kind of regret. But how do we continue to inspire these young women coming out of high school, going into post-secondary, to continue being athletes?
So again, I think it's a lot of communication, talking to them, showing them, not just talking to them, but showing them where you can go to get this done. Like, okay, I want to go to university and I want to do well in school, but I want to play volleyball too.
Right.
Well, we need to get in contact with that university and the athletic department. And is there anyone recruiting you, or is there anyone that needs to know what high school you go to so they can come and have a look at you? If someone's coming to have a look at you, we need to get these kids to go and talk to these university coaches and these university administrators to say, yeah, we do want you here. Right. And here's the kind of programs we could set up for you. And so that you're able to play volleyball and go to school at the same time. Because you probably wanted to go and play sports, but you're just like, who do I contact?
It's
Who do
true.
I go to?
Yeah.
And where do I go to be seen so I can be recruited?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that because I'm coaching a team right now of 16-year-old girls who are looking to be recruited by American colleges.
Yeah.
And I've been down to these GUAA tournaments
Mm-hmm.
where like you're in a gym and the whole baseline is lined up with like 150 coaches. I've had a coach from Yale come to me and ask me about a couple of the girls on our team.
Amazing.
Are they going to have the grades to get into Yale? And we don't give scholarships, but we do grant and aid. So they're already looking at 3 or 4 hour players. This is Yale University.
Wow.
Systems
So
navigation.
if you know where to go and the avenues, because when I was in high school, there was no one telling me how you navigate that.
Yeah, no.
Nobody helps you.
Yeah.
No.
Not unless you have an older mentor that has already been through the system,
Right.
knows how it works, and is able to help you. And that's why I came to YAACE and I'm working with Become One to help people who were like me, didn't know what to do. Well, here's what you need to do. You need to have your books ready and you need to have your game ready. And then when coaches are contact you, here's what you do. Here are the questions you ask. Here are the visits you can go take. Is somebody not recruiting you? Here's what you can do to get attention. Here's where you can go. Here's who you can talk to. Like, I didn't even know that you could, like, now you could just go on the internet and you can get the email address and the phone number of the guy that's recruiting for that
Just reach
college.
out.
Yeah.
And
Good
reach
point.
out.
Mhm.
They don't know
Accessible,
that.
right?
Yeah.
But it is accessible. That's a good point.
It's accessible. And that goes back to what you're talking about, accessibility. Like, where do I get that opportunity
Right.
to show John Glenn I know the math,
Right.
right? And she had to go and get multiple degrees
Yeah. Just to be able
to
to
show that she was a great mathematician just to be ready for that position. And then even still in the movie, when she was that person, there was a gatekeeper there. You know what a gatekeeper is? The gatekeeper was there to make sure that those blacks knew their place and she didn't get in till she did a mathematical equation on the board and someone asked, who did that?
Right. Now all of a sudden.
Now, all of a sudden, who she did it? The girl that's always running to the bathroom
Yeah.
because you have a segregated bathroom in where she should be. That's all about opportunity. It's not that you can't do it. It's that you don't give us the opportunity to show that we can do it.
100%.
Right. Right.
I feel like that's why also having, going back to your point, mentors, like the power of mentorship, because even here at YAACE with the boys basketball program or the Inspire Kids, I think it's so great to be able to see them go to tutoring and actually have them inside the classroom doing their homework and then afterwards going into the gym, like just letting them know the significance, going back to your point, of education and basketball. So your student, athlete, right? So them even understanding those skills, but more importantly with their coaches advocating on their behalf, like getting on, not being afraid to get on the phone with their whether that's school coaches or university coaches or whatever the case is, like doing their portion of it and reaching out and connecting with all these different coaches to let them know about their students. I think y'all are doing a great job with that. So I look forward to seeing what's going to happen with this girls program and seeing how it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, we're definitely excited about it.
It's gonna be cool.
For sure.
I might get back on the court. Not just kidding.
You should definitely get in there.
Maybe. You're
in
inspiring me.
Yeah, 100%.
For sure.
Yeah, Coach, one of the things I find every time I have a conversation with you is I learn something about history. You're big on your history. And we are here as well at YAACE. Just walking down the hallway here at 45 North Inch, it's lined with historical Black figures. So what I wanted to ask you was, how do you incorporate lessons on Black history into your coaching approach? And why do you think it's crucial for young athletes to understand their heritage and the struggles that people of color have been through in this country?
Yeah. So when I'm coaching, it inevitably comes up, like, when we're doing a drill or when we're in a game I always bring up the battles that we have to fight. I never skirt them. I never like, oh, we're going to push this under the rug. Like, I always point it out. So like, I'll say something like, we'll be in practice and they're like, why we keep going over this drill? We already know it. And I'm like, no, we have to be disciplined and structured in everything that we do. Because you know why?
Mm-hmm.
When we lose, they'll say they're undisciplined or they turn on each other. The old stereotype myths that they always point out about us. So I'm like, that's why we need to do things a certain way. So that's how we get into these conversations. And I'll give them stories. I'll talk to them about our historical background and where we come from. And I'll try to show them that these myths, they're just myths that they break up. They make up to try to keep us down. And it's up to us not to buy into these myths. Like I'll tell them, we're the original people.
Period.
Yeah.
We're the original people. That's why we have melanin in our skin.
Right.
Do you know that melanin is something scientists are trying to investigate because it has power? And they're like, oh, we don't know that. And I go, do you know about Martin Luther King, you know about Rosa Parks, but you don't know about all the other great people of melanated backgrounds because those are the people that they want you to know about. And I'll delve into people that I go, do you know who Mara Latimer is? No, they tell me no. Well, most of those quote unquote inventions that happened, like the light bulb. Latimer is the one that came up with the filament to put in the light bulb.
Wow.
It wasn't
I don't
Thomas
know.
Edison.
Oh, Thomas Edison.
Thomas Edison.
The light bulb, right.
The light
Yeah.
bulb guy.
Yeah.
Light bulb. Okay.
So they say he created the light bulb, but you remember, black people couldn't get patents.
Right.
So
Right.
black guy comes up with an idea, can't get the patent. You can get the patent. Now all of a
Yeah.
sudden you
It's
came up
your
with
invention. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. We're showered with all this information during the month of February,
Right.
but then it
Yeah.
all seems to.
it. But that's just
I
information that
definitely-
they
yeah.
want us to get out there. There's a lot of
Exactly.
information that. Why do you think they're banning books in Florida? I'm reading a book 1619 right now, right, by Hannah Nicole Jones, and that has stuff in there that, yeah, of course they're not gonna want out.
Right. Even the way the textbooks are designed
Yeah.
in schools, right?
And then you even have proponents, black people in the United States and in Canada saying, well, we shouldn't say stuff like that because it just makes white people feel guilty. And we don't need to make young white people feel guilty. Well, the history's history. You have to tell it.
Yeah.
Right? It's so if you want to explain to people why we're behaving the way we're behaving, why we have issues with gun violence, why we have issues with domestic violence, why we have issues with our young men only wanting to date girls who are light-skinned or white, you need to delve into the history. And of course, it's uncomfortable, but if you want to solve the problem, you have to get to the source of where the problem comes from.
Right.
You can't skirt around it and hide it. Why do you think in all these rapper videos, most of the girls are light-skinned with long hair?
It goes back to the media we were talking
I
about
was about to
earlier
say,
on.
we're
Exactly.
going to dive into beauty standards.
back to the
Yeah.
media and-
And then what's the standard of beauty?
Yep.
Blonde hair, blue eyes, and everything else falls underneath that.
Right.
But if you really look at it, blonde hair and blue eyes are recessive genes. Dominant are brown eyes,
Yep.
cocoa brown skin.
Period.
Yeah.
That's dominant.
That's a
Yes.
facts. Those
So
are facts.
who's setting the standard of beauty?
Mm-hmm.
And who's
Yeah, it's
brainwashing
arbitrary.
who?
Yeah.
So those are the things I kind of delve in with my guys to help them to see, not to put or belittle any other race down, but to show my guys that you don't take a back seat or second seat to anyone, right?
Just get them thinking.
And get them
Right.
thinking and
Yeah.
get them feeling good about themselves. You
Right.
feel good about yourself, you start doing good things.
Right.
You feel bad about yourself, you start doing negative things, carjacking, shooting each other, not looking after each other. That's a person there that needs help. He needs therapy.
Absolutely.
Person that's well-adjusted person is going out and smiling and what does this day bring for me? Who can I help? Who can I serve? That's a good, healthy person that has a good outlook. People that are going around doing wrong things, they're unhealthy, man. Mentally, they're unhealthy. And it's hard. It's very difficult for me to say, but a lot of black people, they need therapy, man.
Yeah.
They need therapy.
And they need to know that it's okay to get therapy as well,
Okay to
right?
get therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's great that we have programs like New Narrative and Towards Peace that
The community safety team.
the community safety team is a part of here at YAAACE and getting out into this community and getting these people some help.
Yeah.
Yep. We offer so many different supports, such as like counseling. We put on different programs as well that talk about mental health. And it goes back to that violence prevention and intervention, right? Trying to like get to the roots before, I guess, intervening before they get into trouble. Because oftentimes we put things in place for folks after they get in trouble. But what are we doing to kind of prevent that from happening in the first place?
Yeah, and that's the whole justice system.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so you're building more prisons, locking up more guys. That's just the Band-Aid effect. What are you doing to prevent prevent these young guys from going that way? If you can make them feel better about themselves and give them to say that here you have an opportunity here, and now if you have an opportunity here, they're not gonna go bad.
Right. Yeah.
You're making it seem like they're innately bad.
Yeah, they're never going to do that though.
Because that's how the system was designed.
The prison system is a for-profit system.
Exactly.
So if we want to talk like that, then here, this whole system set up in the Western world, it's set up for us to fail. We were never thought of as being, these guys are going to be in our system. We were thought of as chattel. We work. We're the worker guys that make them rich.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so when they started dragging us over here in the 16th century, they were never thinking about us being free and roaming around like we are now. We were going to be controlled. And so when that whole thing of in Jamaica, slavery was abolished in 1838, 1865 in the United States. When these guys started roaming around, they're like, we can't have these guys roaming
Like,
around.
what are you doing? Yeah.
So we went from the slave system to sharecropping to jail.
Yeah. Prison system.
The history of this is that whites have always been dominating our whole life. How we wear our hair, how we speak, where we work, where we live, how much money do we have. They've been dominating that. They've always dominated that.
Yeah, I read something crazy yesterday that the last segregated school to be closed in Canada was like 1982.
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago.
No, it was not.
I was in grade 12.
1982 was not that long ago.
I was in grade 12 in high school.
Oh my gosh.
It's
And
absolutely
we're
crazy.
talking here about people of African ancestry. What about the native peoples?
Right.
Still going through it.
Yeah. Still problematic.
Absolutely. We just got two more questions actually. So this last one is the second last one. The last one is
Last one,
crazy.
okay, yeah.
I'll let you get the last one. That's our $1 million question. This is something that we've seen here at YAAACE also amongst our teams. This culture amongst today's young players of jumping from team to team, always looking for a greener pasture. This, like I said, something that we see here and we're seeing it a lot more frequently. What are your thoughts on this trend and why do you think this is happening?
So this jumping from team to team, I don't think it's a recent trend. It's been exacerbated by travel ball, AAU,
right,
and prep school basketball.
Okay.
But it went on in my day, and I played back in the 80s. Guys would jump school or switch, but there weren't as many avenues to play. Like you either played on your high school team or you played on a little travel team, not a travel team, but a little community team. Like we used to have a team called the Maroons that used to play out of near Trethaway and Jane.
Okay.
Back up near towards Woolner. And so guys, but it wasn't like it is now. And it's like that because of AAU basketball and prep school ball where everyone now is trying to jockey and position themselves to get that big scholarship so that they could go off and then become, get in the NBA draft. They see like, the Alexanders doing it. They see Rowan Barrett. So now parents have become more involved. It was before parents like, okay, you want to go play basketball? Go out and play basketball.
Yeah.
But now the father and the mother is invested in this kid playing basketball.
They're the agents even.
They're
Yeah,
the agents.
yeah, they're the
They're
agents.
driving this kid from Brampton to Mississauga to YAAACE
I'm one of those
I was about to
parents.
say.
to go to practices and to go to games. And you know, it's more of an investment now for the parent.
Yep.
So now you're seeing that manifest in the gym where the father or the mother is yelling at the referees. Now, referee enrollment's gone down. There are a lot less people who want to referee now. Like there are some states in the United States, one of the states that pops to mind is Minnesota, where they don't have enough referees to ref these high school games.
Wow.
Because guys are, you know,
They're
you
still
see it
on
on
it.
Instagram, guys, refs fighting guys on the floor.
Yeah. Yep, getting
So-
attacked, like
Yeah,
literally
getting attacked.
attacked by
Crazy.
parents.
Yeah,
from
because
the fence.
parents are more invested. I put money into this travel guy. Like I'm paying $3, $4, $5, $6 for this guy to travel.
Right.
And you're calling fouls on him that, you know, I don't think is right, or you're making bad calls.
Right.
And I see it at when I'm with the GUAA. So now kids and parents are now involved in that, where it's like, okay, this team here, they're not good for you. Like I'm coaching the grade 7 team here at YAAACE. And we had like 3 or 4 guys leave the team because they don't think the team's good enough.
Wow.
They don't think the team's good enough, so they've gone to another program where they think, okay, this team's good, and now I'm going to be seen, and now I'm going to be able to travel.
Right.
And I don't like it because it's like, to me, and I've told Jordan McFarland this, the director of basketball operations here at YAAACE.
Yeah.
YAAACE has the best development of young kids that I've seen in the GTA, maybe in the country.
In the country.
Wow.
Yep.
The young kids that come here, that like the 4s, the 5s, the 6s, the 7s, the 8s, they're some of the best basketball players I've seen.
Yeah. And a lot of them are starting in small ball. They're starting at age 4.
So then you
Like-
get these guys like Jordan and, you know, the other coaches at YAAACE who are developing these young guys.
Right.
And then as soon as these guys get developed now, Jordan and the other coaches have put in the hard work. Because when you bring your son into me and he's 4 or 5 and he can't dribble, he
Right.
can't pivot, he can't shoot. And we're teaching them that with small ball, with gyms at CW, right here at 45 North Finch. And we're teaching them that. Now they become somewhat accomplished.
Right. The fundamentals are there.
Fundamentals are there, and everybody says, oh, that guy's a pretty good player. Some other organization goes and, make no mistake, they go to the parents first.
Wow. To snatch
You
them
know,
up.
your son's good. You know, we can do this with him. We can send him here. We can make him see it. All of a sudden, the parents' ears perk up.
The possibilities
Yes.
are endless.
And so now they're like, oh, this guy's going to be my meal ticket. So now they encourage the youth to leave. They go to another team. And it's not always green or on the other side. Because I've coached a lot of YAAACE kids. And when I was at Inspire and United, I had a lot of YAAACE kids. Like Inspire was all YAAACE kids.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of them fall off and a lot of them come back. The older ones that fell off, a lot of them are not going to recover. They're going to go and be the statistics that we're just talking about.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's also because the discipline is not there within those different programs?
You just hit the nail on the head, right?
Yeah.
What I find with the young Black kids, the issue with them is not talent. It's not brains. It's discipline. They lack discipline and structure. Those two things are what's sending these guys into gangs and becoming carjackers and ending up in prison. Those two things, discipline and structure.
Right.
Discipline and structure is what I had a big issue with at Inspire. Showing up on time.
Right.
Showing up ready to work. Having the discipline to persevere through things even though you didn't really like them. And I would always say to them, well, your mom gets up every morning to go to work. You think she wants to go to work? No. She just knows that she has to because the rent needs to be paid.
Right.
You need new running shoes in a couple of weeks. You need a new winter coat. That has to be done. So somebody has to go out and get that done. And their mothers do that, but they still don't learn discipline from it. And the issue I have with it, with no disrespect, is that a lot of these guys, they don't have a male mentor figure in the home. Now, I can't tell women to be with men that they don't want to be.
No, for sure.
But at least have someone, an uncle or a friend, male in the life of some of these young guys that's going to help them, show them structure and discipline. The black women are doing a great job, but you can't do a great job by yourself. You need help.
Yeah.
And they need some of these guys to be mentored and put the structure and discipline in their lives.
A lot of these guys, yeah.
I think that's the number one thing across the globe that's hurting black men. Those two things, discipline and structure.
I agree.
If they had it, they have everything else.
Agree.
Black men have everything else. They need consistent structure and consistent discipline. And I put us up against anyone.
No, I agree. I feel like those are definitely the two things missing, especially for a lot of the youth that even we work with. I find same thing.
Yeah.
The structure is missing, whether that's in the homes community and also discipline. They look at
discipline as a bad. Discipline is the greatest form of love.
Yeah, it's
the greatest form of love. It's being able to delay gratification so that you can get to where you need to get to.
Yeah.
And they don't have that.
Nope.
And if you don't have it, the way this Western society is structured, if you don't have discipline, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You're going to have bad credit.
Yeah.
You're going to make bad decisions.
Yep. Okay, so I have a question actually. How would you advise, I would say, some of the parents who are looking for help but don't necessarily know how to find the help to like be able to discipline their youth or provide that structure that is needed? Because I find with a lot of the youth that we work with, or that I work with specifically, I'll talk for myself, it's hard for the parents to discipline their youth. So what type of advice would you give to those parents?
So my advice would be to try to find somebody. It could be a male friend.
Yeah.
Or an uncle or a brother. To provide that mentorship and that discipline that these young men need. Because here's the thing, like the statistics prove that the single parent household, black females, the rate of incarceration, going to prison, illiteracy, problems dealing in school, they all stem from this young man not having a male role figure to look up to. It affects females in the same way. If you're a single mom with a daughter, chances are she's going to get pregnant than a girl that doesn't live with a single mom, because the statistics prove that she's going to be going out looking for this male mentorship that she never got at home.
Right.
So you don't have to have you have to have somebody in their lives that can give them that, somebody that they can sit and talk with, somebody that can discipline them, right? When these young boys, like I've been in a family like that, raised by a black mom, where it's like you get to be 12, 13, 14, and the testosterone starts to run through your bones, you're not listening to her anymore. And the beatings, they don't do nothing.
Yeah.
The yelling and the screaming and the cussing, it doesn't do anything anymore. And then what do they end up saying? Well, you can't tell me what to do. I can leave. I can do whatever I want to do.
God, yeah. Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
So
for a lot of them.
For a lot of them, it's coming. So then that's when you have a male guy step in and it's like, yo, you're supposed to be in here by 11.
Right.
You got to be in here by 11 or you got to deal with me.
For sure. But that's not to say, some of the moms don't discipline their parents.
No, because we're talking in general terms, right?
No, 100%.
Because there are moms that
are like, don't play with me.
Don't play with me. That's curtailed.
Yeah.
But I'm talking over in the statistics over in general prove this, right? And that's something where your question is, how do we get that? Well, find someone like an uncle, a friend, someone that could be there, that's going to be there consistently.
Yeah.
And someone that this young person, woman or man, can respect, where they can go to get mentorship. They can go and talk to someone about stuff.
Yeah.
And that'll help them, because I know I did it. I had mentorship from guys that I played with.
Right.
Older guys that would say, hey, Pat, man, you should not be doing that.
Right. That'll check you.
Yeah.
when you
Or,
need to be checked.
you don't need yes men around.
Nope.
You need guys that are going to, the guy that tells you and actually is honest with you, that's the guy that loves you. It's not the guy that's feeding
That's
you
the guy that
like,
cares
oh, yeah,
about you.
you're right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right. So you find one of those guys. I got mentored by guys that were coaches at George Brown when I was in high school. Older players, like, you see a guy and you're like, I like your lifestyle, the way you operate. You seem to know what you're doing. Like, could you give me a few pointers on what I could do? I remember when I was in grade 7, I had a teacher at Rockcliffe. I went to Rockcliffe Secondary School.
Oh, I remember
right near Jane and Woolner.
Mm-hmm.
Down the hill was Rockcliffe. And my gym teacher was Mr. Bintz. This guy, I idolized this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was a gym teacher and he worked at Rockcliffe.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him we were sitting in the dressing room, the change room at Rockcliffe, and these guys were talking about girls they'd messed around with. And Mr. Bintz called me over. He said, Patrick, come here. And I walked over and he goes, you need to get away from those guys. And I said, why? He said, because good men don't kiss and tell. And that was Mr. Bintz. That was my gym teacher. That wasn't my dad.
Yeah.
That wasn't he was a mentor type guy to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nugget. That's a nugget, though.
And I'm 61 and I still remember that.
Yeah.
Made that much of an impact.
So you need to get guys like that around. These guys need to tune in, like who they can get. Now, it's not just the parents' job.
Yep.
Your job is to find guys that you think are living a lifestyle that is conducive to how you want to live. And I got to go back and say that my mother was the most important person in telling me that, because my mom used to tell me, make sure you're hanging around with people that are doing the right thing. If you see people doing the wrong thing, you got to split, because you know why? They'll point you out first because you're the black.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fact.
So I learned things like that from my mom. And I learned things like, not all white people are bad.
No. Yeah, that's true.
Right? So I never walked around with a chip on my shoulder thinking, well, I hate all white people and I don't want to deal with them. No, I never did that.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave me a good grounding to say, well, I can listen to Bintz, because Bintz was a white man. And my mom told me it's not about your skin color.
Right.
It's about the content of your character. So if he was telling me something that my mom already told me, Bintz was just reinforcing it.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to listen.
Exactly.
Another thing my mom used to always tell me is, if you have to put your hands on a woman, that woman ain't for you. You need to walk away.
Shout out to all the mothers out there, man.
Yeah, you need to walk away.
Yeah.
So
It's
like I
true.
said, you have to have a good, remember we talked right at the beginning, you have to have a good base from home.
Yep.
And if you get a good base from home, now you can go out and your tentacles are finding these bases that you were told this is the right way to operate.
Right. It puts
Strong
things into
roots.
perspective too.
Correct. And now I've been married for 30 years now. My mom always told me that a good man makes money and goes home and shares it with his wife. What this needs to be paid, here's the money for this. Can you pay this? I'll pay this. You pay that. That's how I operate with my wife.
Oh, I love that. But
So it's something
That's why
comes,
you've been married 30
yeah,
years.
well, yeah, well, that'll do
That's how
it.
you got there, right?
comes from your base that you were given.
Right.
So I'm saying that, I'm not saying that it has to be just a male figure has to be in the home, but there are other avenues where you can go to get
Absolutely.
these things you need, because a man brings these amount of attributes to a relationship and a woman brings these attributes. They cancel each other out. The women are the nurturers, the lovers. So your little boy, he's your little boy.
Yeah.
You're always going to want to nurture him and hold him.
It's true.
You have a husband now who can separate. He's not a nurturer. He's a hunter-gatherer.
Yeah.
So he can step in now when that little guy's acting up.
Fix
He
up.
can straight him out, fix up, or this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And he'll fix up. And that combination brings a whole complete individual to adulthood. So now if you're missing one of those, there's an imbalance. There's not a balance in the
It's
equilibrium.
not stable. Yeah.
So you got to find where he's deficient and bring that up.
Right.
Or find where she's deficient
Right.
and bring that up. Because if her dad's never been in her life her whole time, she'll spend her life trying to chase this admiration that she wanted from her dad from just any guy. And we all know that it's not just any guy, it's the right guy.
Absolutely.
When's your book dropping? I just want to know. When's your book dropping?
It's always like
can
this.
I be the first one to talk to you about it? Because
this is why I was, I've been saying for weeks. I'm like, we got to get you on the podcast, man, because But anyways, I mean, we've been running for a while now. Let's just jump into this final $1 million question.
Ooh, okay, your face. So the $1 million question is Jordan or LeBron, and why? We want to know.
So for me, it's a generational thing.
Okay.
If you're a guy that grew up in the 70s and the 80s and watched games in the 90s, you're I'm not saying every guy, but the majority of guys are going to be a Jordan guy.
Yeah.
You're going to be a Jordan guy. Now, if you're, I don't know, 20, 17, 18, 19, your whole generation, you watch LeBron.
Right.
Right? So to you, he's the GOAT. And you got radio, TV, right? You need content. This whole GOAT thing, it's something that generates money and gets people talking. We're talking right now. We're talking about that.
True.
So I just think it's generational. The majority, like you're going to ask me, is Jordan all the way. He won 6 titles.
Yeah.
He never left the team he was on. He stayed. Well, he left and went to Washington, but he never complained that the Bulls were, bad and he wanted to go play with someone else. And my generation, they would have never been super teams. They're super teams, but they were drafted super teams.
Yeah.
The Lakers were drafted.
Yeah.
So the Lakers had Magic. They had Kareem. They picked up Kareem in free agency. They drafted Magic. They drafted Worthy. They drafted Cooper. They drafted Byron Scott. So that was a super team, but that team was drafted.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Celtics. Bird, McHale were drafted. Parrish was a trade for. Danny Ainge was a draft pick. So those teams were super teams, but they were drafted. We didn't have where like LeBron would leave and go from Cleveland to Miami to join Bosh and Wade. There was none of that.
True.
And I guess the first 2 super team you could say was when Garnett was in Minnesota.
Yep.
Marbury was there with Sprewell.
Sprewell was over there.
And what's his name again? The guard. But those teams that was probably the first super team. But you can't argue about LeBron's greatness. Like everyone says, he's been to 10 finals. Well, yeah, that's pretty tough
finals.
to go to 10 finals, man. Like that's a decade where the man was going to the finals.
Yeah.
Like
Out of 20 years in the league, like half of his time in the league, he made the finals.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting his 4 championships. The one thing that I always admire about LeBron, he never got in trouble.
The scandals you're talking about.
Never got in trouble.
Kind of minds his business,
Never got in trouble. Married to a black woman, raises a nice little nuclear family. Never got in trouble, never cheating.
You've been with her since high school, too.
Yeah. And he was the chosen one on the front cover of Sports Illustrated. And there was no drop off.
Yeah, could have had any
usually
girl
guys that are the chosen one, they end up being a flop. He lived up to all expectations.
Yeah.
But for me, Michael Jordan's still the GOAT. Plus, I'm a guy that idolized the University of North Carolina Tar Heels.
Okay, so
I started liking them in 1977. I'm going to tell you a story. Quick. When I got to junior high, Rockcliffe, it was 7 and 8 combined. I had just come from a school called Roseland Public School. That school was like 98% white. I was like one of the only black kids in that school with my brothers. And now they talk about inclusivity and being nice and all that. Back in those days, every day you're getting called some slur at school, having to fight somebody, somebody telling you couldn't do something because you're the melanin in your skin. And so when I left Roseland and went to Rockcliffe now, Rockcliffe was like 70% black kids. They would all come down from the hill from Roseland, come down the hill
go to that school
to go to Rockcliffe, and most of the black kids went to George Syme that fed into Roseland.
Got it.
So this was the first time in my life that I was actually in a school where like I wasn't the the it kid.
Right.
And that's how I started basketball. In 1977, I tried out for the Rockcliffe team
Wow.
and just thought I would go fool around. But I ended up getting picked. Me and Derek Alfonso were the 2 grade 7s that made the team. All the other guys were grade 8.
Mm-hmm.
And I never played. I rode the pine. I wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Cross, another guy that I looked up to, a mentor guy, he was the coach. And the way he treated me was like made me like him even more. And he said to me, go and work this summer on those things that I showed you how to do and come back next year. And I went down to Noble Park near where I lived. I went down there every day.
To practice.
Yeah, from June, July, August. And I practiced right-handed layups, left-handed layups, ball handling, crossing over through my legs, behind my back, shooting. All the things Mr. Cross showed me. And went back to the school the next year in grade 8. I was the best player in that whole area.
Wow.
And the reason why I'm telling you the North Carolina story is I remember one day I went to the library and picked up a Sports Illustrated. I don't know if you know the magazine Sports Illustrated. And so I picked up a Sports Illustrated and took it back to class. And I was in the back of the class looking at it. So I opened it up and there was really, really brown guy that had on the North Carolina uniforms. You know their uniforms, white with baby blue. And this guy was as black as the board. His name was Phil Ford. And he was an all-American point guard. And I'm like, this guy, this is somebody I can relate to. Because before then I was a hockey nut. But all the hockey players were all white guys.
This is true.
So I couldn't relate to it. I played hockey, loved it. But I didn't see anybody like me playing.
Couldn't see yourself.
Especially back then,
Yeah. So I looked at Phil Ford and I'm like, this team, these uniforms, this is the team I will follow till the day I die.
Wow.
And this guy I will follow till the day I die. That's how I got into basketball.
You see the power of representation?
Absolutely.
That's how I got into basketball. Seeing Phil Ford in a 1977 Sports Illustrated.
Wow. Yeah. Like you said, the power of representation.
It's crazy.
I looked at him and I thought, this guy looks like me. I can be him.
Yep.
And that's when I went from, I stopped playing hockey and just started concentrating all my efforts into basketball.
Wow.
Because of Phil Ford and the University of North Carolina. And he's older, he's older than me. So I'm 61, he'd be older than me. And the guy he played with, Walter Davis, just died this year and got inducted into the
Hall of Fame,
the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And them 2 guys played at North Carolina.
You're like
Dean
North
Smith.
Carolina all the way.
Ever since then, 1977.
There's no going back.
Followed. I remember when Jordan came to North Carolina as a freshman.
Yeah.
James Worthy.
Wow.
Jimmy Black. Sam Perkins.
Followed everybody.
All of them. Stackhouse. Rasheed Wallace. That's been my team ever since.
Wow.
All because of me seeing that one Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
So representation matters.
Listen, representation matters. I just feel like I have to say it again.
Yeah.
Yep.
You see somebody that looks like you doing something, you can do it.
Yep.
For sure. Well, Coach,
wow,
it's been great, man. It's been exactly what I thought it was gonna be. So thank you for coming through.
Thank you.
I appreciate this is like therapy to me, man.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for your book to drop.
I am so glad that you asked me to come on, and it's just been a pleasure talking to you guys and just kicking it.
Yeah.
Thank you for dropping so many gems.
Yes.
I hope the viewers and the listeners are taking notes, honestly.
For sure. We'll have to do it again sometime too.
Yes.
For sure. This has been another episode of the YAAACE Time podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes.
Stay connected to us. Follow us on social media. And look out for the next one.
We'll see you next time. Wow.